covered in the 30 minutes we've got. Okay, that is recording. Okay, so good afternoon and welcome to those joining me for a lunch and learn session today on rest and digest. So I'm Anna Earl and I'm doing some nutrition work on the One Team Active programme, and today we're talking about some really simple but really effective techniques and tips to help with digestion, particularly when you're working in policing and you're trying to eat on the go, and you're not sure where your next meal is coming from and so on, and all those different challenges. So that's what we're going to be tackling today. So I'm just going to share my screen with you. Okay, so this is a picture of my optimal health flower that I have shared with you before. And this explains how balancing these 5 health areas really makes sense. So if you go around clockwise from stress, it spells out sense. And all of these health areas interconnect. So today we're focusing on the links between 3 in particular, 3 health areas. And we're going to be looking at the relationship with stress and nutrition, and also with emotional balance, which for this section is going to be talking a little bit about a concept of mindfulness and the link with digestion. So we're looking to balance these 3 areas to promote health. And the challenges that you're faced with are having this topsy-turvy lifestyle of eating at irregular times of the day and night, eating on the go, and that unpredictable nature of where your next meal is coming from. And it can make it really difficult to also access healthy food with that unpredictability. So do you experience uncomfortable gut symptoms after eating? Things like heartburn, indigestion, bloating, constipation. This is really common with shift workers. So I conducted a really small survey with some police officers in a variety of different policing roles. And I asked them, how much do you think that your food choices and habits affect your performance at work? And really common responses were, I feel sluggish after eating, I feel bloated, I crave sugar. And about 3/4 of responses reported that unhealthy treats keep me going after dealing with a stressful incident. And that's fine, occasionally, but if that is your go-to after every stressful incident and you're involved in policing, that can be a lot of unhealthy treats. And then the impact of that on your health and energy is going to be really quite a big response and significant. So you might just live with symptoms. You might just take antacids. You might take PPIs, stomach acid suppressing medication. But there are also some techniques that you can do to help reduce the discomfort. And that's one part of today's session. And the other part is about managing appetite. So in light of those responses that unhealthy treats keep a lot of officers going when dealing with stressful incidents, looking at and understanding appetite and having some other tactics to use to manage stress rather than that unhealthy reliance on comfort foods can be really have a really healthy and helpful impact on weight and mood. So this is the body's stress response. So any perceived stress on the body will initiate the same response. So whether that's just joining us, sorry, just let them in. So whether that stressor is real, whether it's imminent, whether it's imagined, whether it's caused from long-term anxiety, or whether it's caused from excessive sugar, fat and salt, alcohol, caffeine and drugs. All of these stressors trigger our stress hormones. We have the same stress response. So the stress hormones, cortisol and adrenaline, and their main function is to survive. And they will prioritize everything in your body for you to survive. So when you're under that stress and you've produced extra cortisol and adrenaline, you've switched, and whether that's actively switched or subconsciously switched into fight or flight mode. So your stress response means you are alert, vigilant, and you are in fight or flight. And so priority is given to your organs and muscles that are going to help you survive. They're going to maximize your opportunity for survival, and they're going to minimize any energy for functions that are not deemed to be essential at that time. So digestion, reproduction, rest and repair. Not now. I need everything I've got to either run away or to stay and fight. Okay, so we're going to have our priority given to our and our heart, our muscles and blood vessels for us to be mobilized. And you can see that things like saliva and stomach and bowel function are all not a priority. Okay, so we're not sending energy and prioritizing energy for those functions in the fight or flight stressed state. We're certainly not in a state for digesting food optimally. So if we think about relating that to different roles in policing, whether you're out chasing a suspect, whether you're dealing with a traumatic traffic incident, whether you're waking up every hour worrying that you've missed your alarm for early turn, or whether you're really stressing over a complex court file, or whether you're trying to reduce those lists on the system for mobilizing units and allocating units to that. Your body is triggering that same stress response. You're going to be releasing the hormones cortisol and adrenaline, and not hormones for promoting digestion. So that stress response was designed to put you into a temporary fight or flight state. And after that stressor has passed, your nervous system should register that's the end of the danger, and your heightened state of alert should find rebalance, switching off those stress hormones, tipping the balance of your nervous system back into a more relaxed state, ready for some rest, repair, and digestion to rebalance those energy levels. But what if that stressor hasn't passed? You're still worrying about an ongoing issue with your boss at work, with the daily issues with your kids, with that long to-do list and the stack of bills that are building up now, with your and then possibly with the sort of dietary impact. The stresses, as I said, are also sugar and fat and salt and alcohol and caffeine. So that emphasis on processed convenience foods, because we're so stressed and too stressed to work out how we're going to have healthy meals every day and haven't got time for that anyway, those stress hormones continue to pump through your blood. And the other areas for rest and digest, the saliva production and the stomach function, they can't compete with that at the same time. It's kind of one or the other. But now it's time for your meal break, and you're still buzzing from all those tasks that you've been dealing with. So you think you'll just sit down and wolf down a sandwich whilst going through your email inbox, which urgently needs addressing. So you end up throwing that sandwich down your neck. You barely register what it was, what was in it, what it tasted like. And then that's it. Your rest break's over and you move on to your list of jobs again. But from a biological point of view, that is not rest and digest. So here lies the challenge. How on earth do you switch into that calmer state, ready for your intake of food, with the reality of all those things going on, everything buzzing around in your head all the time during your busy shift or your working day? I mean, even remembering to have a drink sometimes can be tricky, right? So you may have to eat when you're allocated a break, regardless of whether you're actually even hungry. So again, you may not be actually in tune with your natural metabolism. So then it's no big surprise that the food that you have wolfed down doesn't then sit very well. And that's what then can trigger a lot of those uncomfortable gut symptoms. So we've got burping and belching going on, and bloating and indigestion and wind and constipation, really common effects from poor digestion. Because digestion actually starts with your eyes and nose. If food is not, so we sort of register it when we see food, and then when we smell it, it triggers really important messages, key messages from the brain to the stomach. Food is incoming. And so the body can prepare. It can start to secrete the right types of juices and enzymes and hormones for digestion. And if food is not then chewed to mush in your mouth, then it also means that you're probably not going to be absorbing the nutrients from your food properly. So if you're just wolfing something down without even really looking at it, smelling it, registering what it is, and then not chewing properly, then you haven't got the right environment to digest your food. And then you're not able to absorb the nutrients properly if you're not chewing it and mixing it with saliva that helps to break down the food properly. So you can just be passing through a lot of really helpful nutrients that you actually want to be absorbing. Okay, so we're going to be thinking about that, where we're going to try not to be quite so absent-minded when busy and busy doing other things. Going to try to reprioritize, actually sort of pausing for a meal and thinking about digestion. So here we've got that's the chewing process, because then once the food actually hits your stomach, that's when it all starts to really break down. And we want the right environment there for it to kill any bacteria that's coming in. So we need the right amount of stomach acid there. We also need stomach acid to break down protein properly. Otherwise, that can cause some stomach upset issues and symptoms if we haven't got the right kind of environment to be digesting food. And then this is about the sort of the absorption of those nutrients. Okay, so that's the sort of digestive process that we need to go through, and for this to happen properly, we need to be in that rest, that calmer, rest to digest nervous state, rather than the fight or flight. We have to really actively switch ourselves from one state into another, and we'll look at different ways of doing that in a moment. Okay, so we're going to park eating on the go and eating while stressed for a moment until we come up with a few techniques towards the end. And now we're going to just think about hunger and appetite. So have you ever considered that there are actually different types of hunger? If you sometimes find you wished that you had eaten less, that you'd made a different food choice, that you regularly seek comfort in food, right, let's get you back into the driving seat as to what you eat when and how much you eat, and regulating your own portion sizes and savouring your nourishing food. So this is not about depriving you of the joy and treats that are associated with certain foods, but it's about removing that autopilot of like, why did I have thirds? Why did I eat that last portion? That could have been my lunch tomorrow. Why did I have a pudding? I didn't need a pudding. I didn't really want a pudding, and so on. It's just about taking away that autopilot and understanding about different types of hunger. So do you ever pause before you eat to ask yourself, why are you eating? Are you actually hungry? And considering the different types of hunger that can lead us to eating and possibly overeating. So we have and this is where irresistible food looks delicious. And so we see some beautifully freshly cooked pastries sitting in the coffee shop window when you've gone in to get a coffee or a tea, and you end up coming out with this wonderful, delicious, hot pastry. Hunger is really powerful. Actual physical stomach hunger barely comes into the equation. We forget to say, why am I eating? All we've done is we've seen that lovely food and we've just reacted and responded. Had no intention of buying that pastry. Or maybe actually you always buy one because they are there and it's just become a habit. So when you go in to get your coffee, you always have one of those delicious pastries. And again, there's no kind of conscious decision because you're actually really hungry. So it could be just habitual. So if we think of set serving dishes where we put a nice large dish of something onto the table to dish up to 4 people, but actually the portion size you've made feed 6, but then the 4 of you polish it off just because it's there. Has that decision had anything to do with hunger? I know it's very sociable and it's and it looks delicious, and again, this is not about removing all the enjoyment. It's just about really conscious decisions about food intake and about why am I eating? What do I need? Without sort of spoiling the joy of eating for treats, but keeping those as occasional treats. Do you need those extra portions, particularly if we are consciously trying to maintain a particular weight or even lose some weight? We found that particularly in my sort of age group, sort of mid to late 40s and into 50s, that stubborn weight gain around the middle when you get towards perimenopause and into menopause. You've been working really, really hard, and then subconsciously you can just be grazing on seconds or on different courses of food without actually making those conscious decisions. So that's eye hunger. And then there's also the power of aroma. So many people lost that joy during COVID with loss of sense of smell, and that really led to a lot of people losing their appetite because of how powerful the smell of food is associated with appetizing that mouth-watering effect of smelling some fresh bread or freshly brewed coffee, or pizza as you walk past a pizza joint outlet, perhaps. And then we have mouth hunger. So this is that sensation of that first lovely crunch. You know how we just all love something that's really crunchy and crispy. So the lovely breadcrumbed goods that just, you know, that sensation of that crunch can be so satisfying and so you know, addictive. And so we just want to be giving our attention to our food when we have these taste sensations, and recognizing that yes, these are all associated with appetite and with eating, but are they actually to do with actually what fuel do I need right now, and how much has become habitual? How much do I actually just take without even thinking about it? How many times do I just go back for a refill or for a pudding? And does it result in overeating if it's not done with your full awareness? You know, if you're fully aware of the decisions you're making and you're comfortable with those decisions, absolutely fine. But it's about being conscious. And then a really major influencer in eating is about heart hunger. And this is the response from those police officers about seeking some unhealthy comfort foods, having dealt with stressful situations and incidents. So here, this might be filling a hole in your heart rather than in your stomach. So this can help us to deal with frustration and sadness, irritation, boredom, anger, anxiety, all those different emotions. And we look for different foods to actually help to fill that hole. But consider how you felt before eating, and what food choices you then reached for too. And again, just, you know, just making sure that those decisions are conscious, that it's not a subconscious comfort eating thing where we're just grazing, and then, you know, maybe deal with either low mood later on or the frustration of having made those choices that we realize. So here, hunger, we can be fueling our emotions rather than actually fueling our body. And you know, with the food choices that we make, it can increase your risk of fatigue from unhealthy food choices, and with weight gain and raised blood pressure. So what else might help to soothe you in those situations? Where else could you find a more positive, calming distraction to alleviate that reliance on food for comfort? Are there other things that you could look to, like when you get home from work, could you get out straight away in some fresh air? Could you put on some music? Can you spend time with a pet? Have you got time to join to do a yoga class or have a chat with somebody, rather than having that reliance? Sorry, having that reliance on food for that comfort. And then finally, we come to real stomach hunger. So this is the rumbling tummy. You know, I need to eat. Hunger hormones have been stimulated. I'm feeling empty. And then we ask ourselves, what does my body need? How hungry am I? Do I need a huge plate of food that's going to really stretch my stomach and actually make me feel uncomfortably full after? But it's there because I've gone for the eat as much as you can, limitless refill roast dinner at the local pub, or whatever it is. You know, if you're buying a meal, are your energy needs compatible with the portion that is offered? And then partway through that meal, you can just check in with yourself. How hungry am I still? Rather than just ploughing on through. And you know, we all sort of go, I don't like waste. But actually, you know, sometimes encouraging you to stop eating and just check in with yourself, you might actually feel satisfied before you become overly full. So this is about consciously assessing your eating behaviours that may have become habits, and taking control back of our food intake by monitoring hunger and appetite levels. So we're learning to listen to the signals from our bodies. What state am I in before I start eating? Am I in a fight and flight, stressed state? Am I feeling that I'm in a sort of calm, rest and digest state? And then listening to the body about appetite. Why am I eating? How much do I need? And learning to be aware of what you are eating and why can really help with weight management, because we're less likely to absent-mindedly eat our way through that last slice of cake just because it's there. You know, am I really hungry? Is that my eye hunger taking over? Okay, so here are a few helpful techniques to help with moving. from that sort of mindless eating into mindful eating. Okay, so these are simple but effective techniques, and they are sometimes referred to as mindful eating. So the first technique is to pause, to become aware of the food rather than just diving in because it's meal time. But you still sort of subconsciously, your mind is still dealing with either your work, or you've just come in and you haven't sort of paused for a second to actually go, right, okay, this is now meal time. I'm just going to pause for a second. Maybe take some deep breaths if you've got the opportunity to, which can really help with bringing down your heart rate, your blood pressure, can really help to switch you into that rest and digest state. It really can. It can be really, really effective. Putting devices and phones away. Can we get away from screens rather than scrolling and catching up with messages and emails and so on? That's not mindful eating. I know it can be a tempting opportunity to catch up, but if you get more focused on that, and actually sometimes the content of what you're scrolling on can increase your stress levels, can you just pause all of that so that we're not absent-mindedly chomping through lunch, whether it's a healthy lunch or whether it's a packet of crisps, it's not going to result in effective digestion. Ideally, we're not in the car with a sandwich balanced on your lap. You're not walking along to your next meeting, ideally not at the desk. Sometimes you have to be. Sometimes it's not possible to have a mindful meal, but still try to just check in with yourself about registering the food, registering the smell of the food, the sight of the food, giving your brain that time for those key messages to start the digestive process, rather than the shock of food hitting your stomach and it's really not ready, which can trigger those uncomfortable gut symptoms. Okay, so we're going to be looking to take some deep breaths, slow the heart rate down, sending those messages to the brain that you don't want those stress hormones anymore. We're now in rest and digest. And then as you start to eat your food, it is vital that you chew. Ideally, every mouthful needs to be really mushy before you swallow, so that all the digestive enzymes in your saliva can start to break down your meal before it passes through. And that can really help with sort of the feelings of indigestion and bloating. So interestingly, the appetite hormones in your gut take about 20 minutes from actually eating for your gut to register and send a message back to your brain that you're full. So that's another reason why slowing down is so important, because if we've wolfed everything down in 10 minutes and we've gone for that enormous plate of food just because it's there or for whatever reason, and it's going to take 20 minutes for that message to get back to your brain that you're full, you're going to get to that point where you're really uncomfortably full because there hasn't been time for the digestive process to really continue and register fullness in time before you've sort of like really overfilled it. So slowing that down can be really effective with that as well. And then during the meal, we do a little check-in. We're enjoying the different flavors. We actually smell the different flavors. If you have a small square of dark chocolate and you put it into your mouth and you smell it and you feel the texture and then you have that melting sensation and you fully appreciate it, sometimes just one square of dark chocolate that's all you need. You just slow everything down and you come to really notice everything about it. And that's more mindful eating, where you then feel, don't necessarily need an entire bar. You just needed that sweet something, that small sweet treat. Gone for dark chocolate, which is the healthier option. Really enjoyed that lovely, the lovely velvety flavour and texture of it, and so on. And there's then absolutely nothing wrong with that at all. You realise you don't necessarily need half a packet of biscuits because you're bored or because you're seeking comfort or out of habit. So this is about a bit of a recalibrate about sort of consciousness and awareness with food choices. And then finally we think about our environment. So is the environment at work, is it possible for that to be a nice social activity, to have a meal together? Is there that chance to just step away from work for a few minutes? Maybe not, depending on what your role is in policing. Can you get outside in the reasonable weather to get a chance to just get outside, get some vitamin D exposure, get some fresh air, take some deep breaths of air, have that, that moment for rest and digest. Find balance of trying to and sort of encouraging others as well in the workplace to understand that importance of just having that pause and that little break, if at all possible. And then think about your environment at home and how conducive is that to sort of pleasurable, the pleasures of resting and digesting with food. And again, preparing food day after day after day for lots of different people at home can feel like such a chore. But is it possible maybe a couple of days a week where you can actually see it as a pleasurable activity? Again, can you put your favourite music on, or a really good uplifting podcast? Can you get other people from home to help you with it? Can you recruit somebody to be your peeling and chopping person, so you have a bit of company? So just trying to sort of create that environment where you are switching off from all the stress from the day, and then trying to deal with it with some healthy cooking in a way that doesn't feel it's extra stress. And the additional benefits to encouraging the healthy digestion like this is that even just taking those deep breaths before you diving into your plate of food, it can help to reduce stress hormones. It can help to reduce cortisol and adrenaline that keep us feeling agitated. And mentally, we're sort of like letting go of those stress triggers and just periodically throughout the day coming to a slightly more relaxed state, even just for a couple of minutes. Okay, so I hope that has been some helpful tips. One of the guys that set up the institute where I studied, Patrick Fulford, he's very well known in the nutrition world, and he regularly says how you think and feel is directly affected by what you eat. And I think we would also add to that, how you think and feel is directly affected by how you eat. I had a client who had terrible IBS type symptoms for about 30 years, and he thought it was all just down to the stress of his job. So we looked at some food intolerances, but we mainly focused on these mindful eating practices. And within 2 weeks, he was experiencing a huge reduction in his symptoms. He gets to the train station from home in the mornings without sometimes having to rush back home again. It was so unpredictable and really embarrassing and really challenging for him. But after just 2 weeks of him understanding about mindful eating and about sort of not eating on the go, and sort of just understanding about appetite and so on, within 2 weeks, and then after 3 months of working together, all of his symptoms had pretty much gone, and he'd put up with that for 30 years. So there really are some quite simple things you can do to help yourselves, to help you feel better and healthier, help you feel more conscious and more aware of you and your own body, managing your own appetite, not having to sort of rely on other people for calorie counting, just fully understanding you and your body, the impact of your food and your lifestyle choices. And so it puts you back in that driver's seat, you back in control, rather than that kind of autopilot and that habitual behaviour. Okay, so that's all I've got to say today. I hope that's been helpful and interesting. If anyone would like to make any comments, I'm very happy to hear any feedback at all. Or if not, I'll just leave you with those points for today.
You can't really see me, sorry, it's Nikki. But just wanted to
Hi,
say
Nikki.
thank you. Hello, I just wanted to say thank you for that. I think I'm a victim of rushing my food, and I think most of us are, but yeah, that's really good. I go home at 5 o'clock and I just raid the cupboards, and it's probably because I'm hungry and ready, and maybe what I should do is pre-cook or get the slow cooker back out, or something like that, pre-cook something that's healthier to nibble at rather than raid the chocolate. But thank you.
Whereas they're really we all struggle with exactly the same thing, Nikki, and those kinds of foods are just so convenient and give us that nice little boost whilst we're thinking about what to cook and what to prepare, aren't they? It's just there so readily available. So you're right, just maybe planning to have some slightly alternative, healthier snacks to have whilst you're cooking, or as you said, having a meal pre-prepared for as soon as you get home as well can be really key. So both of those can be helpful tactics to help reduce the larder raiding. Thank you for sharing that. Anyone else? Any other comments?
Thank you. I was going to say similar. It's I do much better when I prepare. If I don't prepare, then I really fall down badly with snacking and just eating the wrong things, really. So yeah, planning is key.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. You know, even just having a load of like some like carrot sticks or some chopped bits of veggies and stuff in the fridge and a tub of hummus or something like that you can just, or some unsalted nuts. I have a big pot of nuts that I just keep on the side in the kitchen all the time and just keep it topped up. And the kids, when they come in from school, they will automatically just go and graze through that first. And so then whatever they have after that, I'm kind of like, it's okay because they've gone to the nut thing first and they've had something, and I know that will start to fill them up a little bit, rather than going straight for the crisps and the chocolate. And the same with fruit, to try and keep fruit out onto the table for ready for when they come in as well. So maybe just, you know, in this weather, just having a tub of some chopped watermelon or some strawberries, or to have that as you go to quickly first. And then, you know, if you then make a slightly unhealthier choice, then you've had the healthy stuff initially. So it's just making it as easy as possible. If it's going to be a chore, if it's going to be tricky, if you've got to stand there peeling carrots first when you're starving and you come in, probably not going to happen. But if everything is there prepared in advance and it's really accessible, and more accessible than the less healthy options, then it's much more likely that you'll be successful there. Anything else at all?
No, it's been great. Thanks, Anna. As again, one of the things I just say about what could be fun, you know, you were talking about fun cooking. Of course, the cook-alongs that we've done, I've found them quite good fun, because I'm not a great cook, absolutely not. But when I've had that incentive of actually I'm cooking something nutritious and I'm following somebody, I'm getting those instructions, even if you know, copy it back, because we've obviously got them recorded, I found it quite fun and something that I've been able to achieve, whereas I'm normally pretty useless in the kitchen, I will say. So actually I found them great. So I just as a pointer to add some fun to the cooking, to make it not a chore as such, and get that
Excellent.
helpful professional guidance on cooking.
Oh, that's brilliant. Thank you. Thanks, Catherine. Okay. If there's nothing else to add from anybody, then I'll let you get back on with your day. Have a lovely afternoon. And yeah, I hope there's some useful and helpful, memorable little tips there to put into practice. But you know, if you do adopt anything and find it really helpful, then absolutely share. Get it out there, so that, you know, I would love to hear how you're getting on, but also for other people on the program as well, to hear some simple little techniques, particularly just those deep breaths before you start plowing into your meal. It just can be, it's crazy how effective it can be to help reduce a lot of like digestive symptoms and so on. And people just don't realize that sometimes that's all you've got to do to just get rid of all that stress that's buzzing around in you before you start digesting food. So give it a try and let me know how you get on.
Thank you very
Brilliant.
much.
Right, thanks so much for
Thanks
joining.
so much.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
All right, take care.
Thank you.
See you.
Bye.
Bye.